Welcome to the channel. I honestly did not expect to get another Anbernic XX series handheld, but here we are. We've got today the Anbernic RG CubeXX. I guess I'll just call this the CubeX because that's easier to say. So this is another one of the Anbernic handhelds powered by the H700 chip. Same chip as powers this right here, the RG 28XX, which is my only other XX series handheld. But let's take a look at the CubeX and see what it's got. So why would you get this as opposed to something else? So opening the box, looks like typical Anbernic packaging. So we've got the handheld in here. Let's see what else we got. We have the white model of the CubeX here. Now I had to put my own screen protector on the RG Cube that I have. It looks like if there is a screen protector, it's already applied. We have directions. They actually sent me a microSD here. This is the typical unbranded. This is a 64 gig microSD. Has some games on it. But since I already have an XX series handheld, I have my own SD card, which I'll probably use. There is also another SD card in here. Let's actually see what kind they gave us. Kioxia, which I'm told is kind of a relabeled Toshiba, but you know, I had one of those in my RG28XX. I had bad luck with mine. Mine failed within I did a video a week after I had the handheld and it failed 2 days later. So I have some, SanDisk micro SDs. I may replace this later, but we'll use this card here. This is the operating system card. So, and also we have instructions. And this is probably a power cord. As is typical, a USB A to C cord. Got plenty of those, so I'll just put it back in the box. So, let's get some of the packaging material out of the way and take a look at this device. So, I would say a completely standard Anbernic loadout here. So before we get too far into this, let's actually do a couple of comparisons here. So we have the CubeX, and here is the original Anbernic RG Cube. As you can see, they're both pretty similar. They're pretty much the same size. Not a whole lot of difference here. Got a pretty similar body. The CubeX is actually a little bit taller. Very slightly taller. I don't know if you can see from the angle, but it is very, very slightly taller. No fan for the CubeX, but of course the stick positioning is different. We have stick on top for the original Cube, which makes more sense for the kind of games that you might play on the Cube with this more powerful processor. We have stick on bottom for the CubeX, and the sticks appear to be pretty much the same, so no real difference there. Now ports are a little different. The regular Cube has USB-C where you can get video output out of there. The CubeX has USB-C, which is probably only for power and maybe OTG connections for controllers and whatnot. And we have a it's a mini USB, not mini USB, mini HDMI port up here for video. And of course, instead of one micro SD slot, you have two, one for the operating system and one for adding games and whatnot. headphone jack's on the bottom here on the CubeX. That's on the top for the original Cube. The CubeX has analog triggers. The Cube original has analog triggers. The CubeX has just push buttons. Now, the thing I'm curious about, is there any weight difference between the Cube and the CubeX? So the Cube weighs in at 264 grams. The CubeX 244, so it is a little lighter, which is what I felt in my hands when I was picking it up. But it's always good to have quantitative data. Cube is not too large. I mean, it looks large compared to a 28XX, but then again, everything looks large compared to a 28XX. If you compare the Cube to something like an Odin II, you can see that the Cube is way smaller. I would almost say you could put one of these in your pocket, but the analog sticks kind of prevent pocketability. If you watch some of the videos around here, you know I pretty much consider anything with analog sticks you're not putting in your pocket. At least not if you care about the device in question. You don't want to do stuff like get dirt in the sticks, rip the sticks off, and so forth. So I have a battery here. Let's see if we're going to be able to play any games immediately or if we're going to have to come back. So I'm going to plug in this battery here and we're going to try to see if we have any charge. Looks like we do not. It looks like this thing is completely empty. So I do have a microSD card with some of my games here, but we may have to wait a little while before we can play any games on this because it looks like the one that I got shipped has a completely flat battery. So we will pause the video for a little bit and we will come back when the Cube has a little bit of charge. While we're charging this device, and so far, according to my battery here, it has been pulling maximum of about 7 watts, which is pretty much what Anbernic advertises on the back of the device. That's about 5 volts, 1.5 amps as far as charging goes. But while we're letting this device charge a bit, let's actually do a quick light bleed test, because the original Cube, some people had issues with light bleeding in around the corner. Since the camera is dark here, don't want to lose my card. Since the camera is dark here, we should be able to see very easily if there is light bleed around the edges of the screen. So let's hit power button briefly. And as you can see, there's no real issues with light bleed around the corners of this device. So the problems that Anbernic had with the early RG Cube, at least, are not affecting this unit right here. So I'm not really seeing much in the way of light bleed. This actually here is a reflection of a light in the room. But it doesn't look like light bleed is a major problem so far. On the CubeX. So we are back with the Anbernic RG CubeXX, and we did a little light bleed test, and we can verify that at least this particular cube does not seem to have any significant light bleed issues. So maybe Anbernic has sorted that out by the time the CubeX came out. So I've got my microSD card here, so we will get this system started up. So we will attempt to put the microSD in the slot. There we go. And we will get this started up. So many little round buttons. Hold down the power button for a second. That may have done it. There we go. So it's going to take a few seconds to start up. Oh. And here is the default interface. Now, you can install all kinds of custom firmware on these Anbernic XX series devices. we're just going to look at what the system comes with by itself. So no custom firmware today, just looking at the stock. I've got a game card prepared, so hopefully we won't have any trouble with this. So as you can see, you've got game rooms, which actually uses some custom, basically, emulators to run specific systems. We have the RA game area, which is RetroArch, which is where you're probably running most of the stuff you're going to run on this system. Not everything, but most of it. We have App Center, favorites, search, settings, and if you want to take a look at what firmware you're running, you can always select settings there, system information. Firmware that's installed on this one right now, of course, is what came with it, and it looks like it's from October 2024. So there's probably been an update since then. I haven't looked, but this will probably do for what we want to do with it right now. As you can see, you've got the Allwinner H700, like all the XX series. And let's back out of this. So we could do various tests, but we're going to try to play some games in a bit. But before we do that, just one tip with the XX series handhelds. I've actually made a little video on this elsewhere, but since we've got this up, we'll go ahead and talk about it. It is nice, since these chips don't really have much of a suspend function like Android does. It would be nice if you could turn the device off and have it pick up in-game where you left off. And of course, some custom firmwares do that, but some people don't know that the stock firmware does pretty much the same thing. But it may not, and it used to not be, I don't know if it was on the CubeXX, but on the other systems, this was not set up by default. So we go to App Center, go over to Apps. All of the important stuff under App Center is under the TF1, which is the operating system card. I'll click on that. We're going to go down to Quick Shutdown. So Quick Shutdown allows you to press the power button, and for most systems, not all of them, but most systems, it will create a save state, shut the system down, and then when you boot the system back up, it will load that save state so that you essentially get back into the game exactly where you left off. So we're going to select Quick Shutdown Set, and we're going to wait a second. So it's asking you if you want to enable or disable. We want to enable here, so we will hit Y. It says Quick Shutdown enabled, set lock screen actions, shutdown or sleep. I just left it at sleep, so I hit A. And now the system is set up so that when you hit the power button in a game, except for certain games, I believe, won't work with this, but for a lot of the RetroArch stuff, if you now hit the power button, it will create a save state, shut the system off, and then when you boot back up, it'll come right back to where you left off. So just a quick tip there. So let's get back out of this. So let's actually look at some games here. And we're going to load them from RetroArch, which is the usual way. Now, one thing, I don't know if you can see on the camera or not, but this screen for a device like this is really, really nice. So nice clear screen, bright. The one on the Cube was good too. It's the same as the one on the Cube. But I think this screen is better, definitely, in terms of quality than my RG CubeXX. For one, it's bigger. For another, it's just it just looks better all around. So let's see. What do we got? I remember what I had on this card. So basically, you can just select by system here. Let's go to Neo Geo Pocket Color. That went down too far. So let's take a look at Sonic the Hedgehog on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, see what it looks like on the CubeXX. Hopefully you'll be able to hear the sound. So one thing that you might be able to see here, I don't know if you can see it on the screen or not, just with the resolution of the camera, but there actually is a grid filter that they've pre-installed on here to make it look a little bit more like the Neo Geo Pocket Color screen. So if you're into that sort of thing, you have this pre-set up, so you don't have to worry about messing with the settings yourself, which is actually nice. I mean, I think Anbernic has gotten a little bit better about setting things up so they kind of work, which makes custom firmware perhaps a little bit more of a luxury rather than an outright necessity that you have to install it just to get anything done. So let's, of course, this system has no problem running Neo Geo Pocket Color, which you wouldn't expect it. Let's go back and look at some other systems. So when you get out of a game to get back to the menu, there's usually a little bit of delay here as it exits the emulator. So let's look at a little bit of Dreamcast here. This is probably something that the system may struggle with a little bit, but let's try it out. So you might have been able to hear it there. Not quite getting full performance from the intro of Grandia. And yeah, this game takes forever to start up, so we won't go any further than that. But I've played this game on my other XX series, and it's of course playable because it's mainly a turn-based RPG, but you're not getting quite full performance. The funny thing is, later firmware updates actually made the performance a little bit worse than the very first version of the firmware that released with the 28XX. So, not sure what went on there, but for Dreamcast games, I think I would honestly consider them a bonus on this system rather than something I would buy this specifically to play. As usual, we have to get back to the main menu. So let's look at a little bit of PSP. Let's see what I got here. Maybe a little Salamander.
Destroy them all! Pick it up, smoke the missile chamber. Pick it up for a missile. Pick it up for a foot missile or steel. Pick it up for a full laser. Multiple. 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 Pick it up for speed up. An intruder has penetrated our force field. Go up.
So you can see the CubeXX handles games like this pretty well. I do believe they have some frame skip set in here in the settings. Yeah, they do have some frame skipping setting. So if you're looking for the optimal PSP experience, again, the XX series is probably not going to be your console of choice, but it does work. So you can certainly play PSP games on here. And you can get you might say a decent experience here. Some games are going to run a little bit slower. Life Force isn't too terribly, sorry, I keep saying Life Force. Salamander isn't too terribly difficult to run. But games like that will run okay. You may get into some trouble with some of the heavier PSP games. But again, it's nice to be able to run these things on this device here. And of course, you can create save states if you like. But I'm just going to get out of this. Look at a few other things. And as usual, wait for the menu to come back here. About a little bit of PC Engine, aka TurboGrafx 16. Look at a little bit of Parasol stars real quick. So, like you can see, systems like the PC Engine TurboGrafx 16 run with basically no trouble here. And Anbernic has actually gone for the CubeX to the trouble of putting on some borders for these games to kind of, rather than having them just sit in the middle of a blank space in the screen, because this 1-to-1 aspect ratio is a little bit off for almost everything. So they've at least taken advantage, for the most part, of filling the space in by putting these borders up. So let's get back to the menu. Look at a little bit of PlayStation 1. Oh, here we go. So do a little colony wars here. See how this works.
Welcome to the League of Free Worlds Information System.
Looks like they don't have the analog control configured. Sure, this is something you can do in RetroArch, but for now we'll just leave it.
The Navy was stretched across the star systems, governing and oppressing, then transporting its spoils back to Earth. The League was small and tightly knit, able to hit the Navy hard and quick before disappearing into darkness. But when we heard there was a new threat to Galania, our home star system, the whole fleet felt the cold rush of fear. The Battle of Benet had lifted us all, inexperienced as we were, but now the entire system was at stake. This time our families needed us. This time we were protecting our homes.
This is Midas Starport. We are under attack. Please assist.
You are targeting friendly craft. One enemy remaining.
starport. Surrounding area clear. Well done. You are cleared to dock.
Docking sequence initiated.
So you can see that PlayStation games work without too much difficulty on this system. Probably for this particular game, setting up the analog control would be something you'd want to do because it's a little hard to fly with the analog stick acting like a digital controller. And Colony Wars is one of those games on PS1 that benefits greatly from having actual analog control. But this isn't the video to get into setting up all kinds of custom configurations on this system. But you can certainly see that performance is okay here. So, and they've given us a TV border, which, okay, neat Sony monitor here. So let's get back out of this. So we done some PSP, we done some PlayStation, tried to do a little Dreamcast, and we hit the Neo Geo Pocket Color, the PC Engine. So you can kind of get an idea of sort of gaming performance you can expect from the RG CubeXX. So we've spent some time with the RG CubeXX, and so what do I think of this handheld so far? So there are some definite things to like about it. Couldn't really tell from the gameplay segments because I had it up on a stand so you could see the screen, but this is actually a rather nice, comfortable handheld to hold. So maybe not so much for playing analog stick games, but this is not really a handheld that's designed for heavy analog stick games anyway, because the systems that make use of those, like PlayStation 2 and systems like that, this thing can't even run. So it's a very comfortable device, certainly way more comfortable than this little guy right here to hold and play games on for a while. Now, one thing that's definitely nice to say about this system is the screen quality. The screen is, as far as I can tell, better. This 720 by 720 1x1 screen is probably the best quality screen that they put into an XX device currently, and maybe it's going to still be that after Anbernic releases 6 other models of the XX series. But this is a very nice screen, very good quality, pretty high resolution, and still big enough so that you don't feel like you're playing on something like this and gonna lose your eyesight. And also, it's a pretty solid feeling build. If I shake this, it doesn't rattle too much, and it feels nice and solid in the hand. Whereas one of these, maybe you can hear this in the microphone. You shake an RG28XX, and it sounds like a maraca in your hand. The buttons are all loose and shaky and all that. So this is actually a way more solid build than my other member of the XX family. So nice feeling build there. So all that said, there are some things that kind of go against the CubeXX. For one thing, definitely not a system for power junkies. If you're interested in, all PSP games, Dreamcast, maybe GameCube, PlayStation 2, then you probably, and you still want a 1x1 screen, or a 1-to-1 screen, you still probably want this, the original RG Cube, which actually has way more power than the CubeXX. And on sale, you can pick up the RG Cube actually pretty cheap. I've seen it as low as about $130. So, yeah, not for power junkies here. And like all systems that have their operating system on microSD cards, there is a potential for microSD cards to go bad. In particular, if you buy the one that comes with games, the microSD card with the games that they ship with this thing is a no-name, probably presumably low-quality card that, maybe it works well for you for a while, but maybe it craps out in a week or two. So you just don't know. So potential issues with SD cards, if you source your own, then it's not as big of a deal. But there is that issue, particularly with these no-name cards that Anbernic and similar companies will often ship. The other thing we should mention is, this is a very unique system. There's not too many of these that have a 1-to-1 screen ratio. And I guess the disadvantage there is it's perfect for almost nothing. So you will get various forms of black bars and whatnot. So it's kind of a compromised position between, say, a 16:9 screen and a 4:3. And of course, Anbernic's tried to make the best of it here by putting some borders around things, so you're not literally just looking at pure black borders all the time. If you had an OLED screen, it wouldn't make so much difference, but on a regular old LCD, then black borders can be distracting when you're playing at night. So the aspect ratio is part of what makes it unique, and it can be a drawback depending on what systems you want to play. This is probably not the best system out there for 16:9 content like PSP, but then again, this system can play PSP, but it's not the best at it. So maybe it's not an issue. But that is a potential con depending on what you want to do with this device. Overall, though, I'm actually glad I got one of these so far. In terms of actually playing games with it, I think it is it won't go in your pocket like this will, but it's a more pleasant experience by far playing games on the CubeXX, at least the games I played so far over the course of filming this video, and some I did offline while I was checking out things like the video output, which didn't make it to the video, but holding the system, playing games on it, it's actually a pretty comfortable experience for a device that's this small. And I think I may have said the same thing about the original Cube when I looked at that months and months ago. So, if you don't have an XX series device, you probably can't go wrong getting the CubeXX. But if you already have one and it's a form factor you like, this does pretty much the same thing as all the other ones do. The main thing is the screen's a little better. So it's probably not worth necessarily adding this to your collection of XX series unless you just have to have that one-to-one screen. But nice device anyway. So definitely of the two members of the XX series that I now have, this is going to be my favorite one because it's a lot more comfortable to play on. So that's it for the RG CubeXX for this video. And if you like the video, remember to leave a like. If you want to see more handheld and other gaming related content, subscribe to the channel. And I hope to see you next video.